What's the story with?
What are some of the lessons that you learned from your father?
If you have to marry, just marry once. I'm a lot like my father, but I would say a more moderate version of him, right? I don't have two wives. But my father was a legend as a lawyer.
Today, divorce has become far more rampant.
There's a lot of good reform that could be done in our legal system.
Does divorce automatically mean that a woman gets alimony?
Does custody always go to the mother?
Who pays the bills?
You want to get rid of your wife? Pay a price for it. Between 1992 and 2001, it was liberalized India's biggest scam. I mean, all those people were my clients, Harshad Mehta and later on Ketan Parikh, because crime never dies. But criminals do. If integrity is difficult in a given situation, just don't get caught.
Welcome to What's the Story With?
Where curiosity meets with conversations.
Real conversations, a little curiosity, and a whole lot of honesty. This is Shweta, my co-host, a very, very dear friend of mine. She's a producer, she's the mother of two boys, she's an arts curator across various disciplines. She is the asker of impossible questions. She also provides the answers to the said questions, and she is always the agony aunt for a very close group of friends, and always a very wise agony aunt.
Thank you. I don't know how true that is, but I will take it. And this, my friends, is Mandira, a very dear friend, a ball of positive energy, a whole lot of light. She enters a room and she lights up the space. And we are so fortunate to have her in our lives. She is also a mother of two, an erstwhile journo, a sports freak, and an avid listener, and someone who believes that every good story begins with
Once upon a time. But also knows, fortunately or unfortunately or realistically, that doesn't necessarily have to end with a happily ever after.
Each week we pick a topic that lives somewhere between the serious and a little absurd, but a lot deeply relevant.
And then we pull and target every single thread of that conversation, and we make sure we unravel it for you. We agree mostly, we may sometimes disagree, we may sometimes cry, we will laugh a lot, but almost always we will walk away knowing something new, and we'll always walk away knowing something new about ourselves as well.
So if you love conversations that are candid, layered, and just a little unpredictable,
You are in the right place.
because this is
What's the story with?
Did you know that prenups are not recognized in India?
I did for sure.
Yeah.
Did you know that economic abuse is also counted as domestic violence? For all this and more, we bring you
What's the story with?
divorce. Every courtroom has its drama. There are battles of ego, there are conflicts, there is plot twists that even the most accomplished screenwriters cannot even dream of.
And then at the center of all of these stories is a man who's seen it all, argued it all, and yet remained calm through it all.
Disarmingly so. He's represented some of the biggest names in our country, whether it's L.K. Advani, Jayalalitha, and now the most recent case that's in the eye of every storm, but we can't talk about, which is Karishma Kapoor's kids taking on their stepfather for their father's huge inheritance battle.
Our guest today is Mahesh Jethmalani, senior advocate, former member of parliament, and the son of the legendary Ram Jethmalani, but very much his own man.
A man who has built a formidable reputation of wit, intellect, and composure. Thank you so much, Tony, and welcome to What's the Story With?
Our first
Here I am, casual in the extreme.
Can you see the black and white here? The logo.
Yeah. This is a new star podcast team about to take the world by storm.
Inshallah.
Nice to meet you, Mahesh. I've never.
That's Shweta.
Oh, hi.
Pleasure's all mine.
You're so very welcome to What's the Story With? Our first episode, as you know.
Thank you.
Thank
this
you
time
for
is-
having me, both of you. Thank you so much.
So, what's the story with divorce? And the theme is law, love, and learning to safeguard yourself.
But before we actually dive into this, every time that Mandira and I have spoken about you coming on the podcast, she has refer to you as Tony. So tell us why Tony? What's
Oh
with
my
that?
God, that's a bit of a sordid story. But, I mean, might as well tell you.
Might as well.
The
Huh.
fact is stranger than fiction, but my father actually married twice. And I was from the first wife, and he had three girls before that. And while he was married to my stepmother, he conceived a son, right? And that was my elder brother Jana. And while she was pregnant, it happens often, I believe. But while she was pregnant, he went back. He went back to my mother, broke his vow to my stepmother that he would have nothing to do with my mother. And then I was conceived. I was conceived. So there's actually an 8-month gap between me and my brother. Very difficult to explain in boarding school. So we pass it off as I was a premature baby. And coming back to Tony, so my father was very embarrassed. There was a bit of a social storm, as you can imagine. A bigamist, and then this happens. This child comes along, so he didn't come for my naming ceremony for 6 months. Meanwhile, my Hollywood-struck sisters, right, used to have this adoration for this actor called Tony Curtis. He had posters all over. I remember seeing it myself. Later on, I saw those posters. There were these posters of Tony Curtis in some movie called, I think, Some Like It Hot or something like that. It was a movie. And so he was the hot, person, the hot Hollywood star at that time. So while this fracas was going on about poor little baby Tony, Mahesh, I, I was temporarily named after my sister's, hero at that time, gentleman called Tony Curtis. So hence Tony.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And actually, speaking of Ram uncle and he could get away with anything.
He was a law unto himself, and while there were many judges about his behavior, right, nobody could actually get him to reform. He was irrepressible, undaunted. That was my father. Hats off to him. He lived life on his own terms.
But that was your father. But who is Mahesh Jethmalani right now? Tell us a little bit about you at this point in your life.
I'm a lot like my father, but I would say a more moderate version of him. Right? I don't have two wives.
Tempered.
Yeah. I don't have two wives. I'm not a bigamist. I'm not my father. My father was a legend as a lawyer. He had a very long parliamentary term as well. So I have to say, given by sheer tenure, he was also a very successful politician. But I think probably looking back, he would have found that while his legal career was immensely successful and almost overwhelming success, but there were certainly some regrets on his part regarding his political life. That's it. You can't be successful at everything you attempt.
No, he was a man unto his own. He was a legend.
Yeah,
He was the biggest name, in many things. For example, in the Sikh riots, he stood tall and firm with the Sikhs. He spoke his mind without worrying about the consequences, and that in itself is very, very commendable.
I remember there were riots, Sikh riots, and there was a particular colony. I can't remember it right now, where it was, a really inflammatory situation. He, along with a group called the Citizens for Peace at that time, Citizens for Justice, a gentleman called, a very senior lawyer called Tarkunde also, they actually used to tour around the areas and try and save Sikhs who were being, who were under the kosh at that time. And there were serious incidents of burning people alive and all that. So he and my sister Rani actually, who also played a pretty stellar role in this, my late sister.
This account that you've just described in itself is by no means ordinary, and it's a bit of an indicator that your life and your childhood was certainly by no means ordinary. Growing up, a Jethmalani, a father like Ram, a sister like Rani, and of course Shobha and Janak, and all the million dynamics at play. What was it like growing up a Jethmalani?
There was always this, there was always awe. When most kids in those days, if you asked what you want to be, they'd say, we want to be a captain in the army or a pilot. Pilot was very, everybody loved being a pilot or engineer or something like that. And, for me, it was almost, a given. If anybody asked me what my career was, it was I wanted to be a lawyer.
But growing up, you never wanted to be a writer, a cricketer, an author. It was just, you knew it in your blood.
I tried my hand at many games, but I can't say that, I was national or international material. I did play badminton for my college, right? And my brother and me were actually doubles partners. We were part of a doubles team at Xavier's College. Nothing. I'm afraid that's I could be terribly proud of as a sports person.
Right.
Mediocre all rounder in many games.
No,
Jack
but
of all trades, master of none.
Now you're being modest. Now you're fishing.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's true. It's
You're
true.
master of law, and that's where your instinct drove you. So
Yeah,
look at
well, I mean, I was tossed into a boarding school very early because they thought that we should get away from all this, and my stepbrother and me should bond. So we were sent to a boarding school, and actually, it brought us very close together. The first being away from home.
Sounds like you had a lot of fun in your boarding school.
Yeah, I always make the best of any
Best.
situation. I think that comes from my father because he was in a refugee camp, for a long time. When he came from Pakistan as a refugee, he was in a refugee camp for a long time. He came with 10 rupees in his pocket. And so I suppose that resilience, all those stories sort of inspire your children also, So wherever you're tossed, you try and do your best.
Yeah, and speaking of those stories, like you said, the proverbial "I came with 10 rupees in my pocket" and became such a legend and made such a life for himself and his family and his kin. Your father was known to carry the community, the fraternity with him. But what are some of the lessons that you have learned from your father? Like what are some of the lessons that you carry into not only just life, but even into the courtroom or every facet really of life? The one-liners.
If you have to marry, just marry once. That's one. That's certainly one, right? Uh, one of the most cementing factors of marriage, right? Are children, and while he was a very busy father, he always found time for his children, and there's a lot of family holidays, stepchildren involved as well. So he brought that all together, and me and my brother had an outstanding relationship. We were very close. We were very, very close. So I think he in his own way, limited though his interaction was, right, particularly when we were young, right. When I got up and when I grew up and joined the bar, then of course there was a lot more bonding because we had very common interests. We discussed cases. I would assist him in many. Being part of that, right, taught me the value of of really, once you've got it there, right, even if you have two wives, try and make it work. And he did make it work. I mean, my
Brilliant.
mother, who got married to my father, my own mother, when he got married to my mother at the age of 15. It's almost
Wow.
child marriage. So yeah, in those days, those things happened. So arranged marriage and all that, right? Up to her dying day, if you asked her, right, how would you like to come back if there is a next life? She would say, I would want to be married to Ram. So after but that was that old school, that was the old school.
Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore.
No.
The man either. Ram uncle, I mean, he was a charmer. I was telling Shweta, I said, nobody could stay upset or angry with him. He just had this beautiful manner about him. And Tony, you were so lucky because you've got to know him, of course, as a child, as your father, as a professional lawyer, and you've had the good fortune of him having touched with such a long life,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I moved to Delhi, right, in 2016, and I think that was almost a God-given movement or a God-ordained moment, because I got the last 3 years of his life. It's almost like I was supposed to go there and I used to be at his residence in Delhi. We used to live separately. I didn't live in his residence, but I used to be at his house every evening practically. And there was a lot more interaction and bonding than ever before. So I also saw him in his very strong, ebullient moments, but I also saw him when he was frail, life was ebbing out of him. Yeah. So I had the whole panoply, and I'm very happy for that.
What do you prefer more, marital law or criminal law? What do you enjoy?
No, I see. Look, my bread and butter is criminal. I used to do divorce early days, and some high-profile divorce cases always came along my way, and I would do them. There's a very restricted scope to matrimonial work. So, I would never consider myself a matrimonial lawyer, though you see, because these involve trials, like, criminal matters and matrimonial matters do sometimes go to trial. You tended, because you were proficient at trials, right? You also got into matrimonial work. It was an area where trials took place. But we should always try and settle matters, right? And marriage, as I said, had a restricted scope because, it was about that there were issues about custody and alimony. And those are the two main issues.
You've encapsulated the entire, because now with what you've said, we're going to just tug at every string and dissect each of these. Just let's just start with the fact that today divorce has become far more rampant. Earlier, uh, the couple used to stay together, whether for appearances, whether for practicality. But today, do you feel that it's become a lot easier, or an option considered much before it should be?
Just remember that only about 3% of our entire population has access to the courts. So when we're talking about divorce, really it's an area of litigation which is really for the well-off, right? Because by and large, there's hardly any scope for a divorce proceeding among the poorer sections of society. They're either abandoned or they just, generally take what they have to. Of course, there are a lot of women's welfare organizations and all do sterling work, even in the rural areas, right? So that's changed a lot. But by and large, this was a well-off urban phenomenon mainly. And you remember that access to the courts till today, unfortunately, is extremely restricted. Once you make it more accessible to the entire country, there's going to be a docket explosion. You're going to need judges like you've never had before, the number of judges, etc. So we're just now, at the very periphery. This legal system in India is going to burst one day.
Yeah, with the amount of people we have, and the kind of issues and financial independence amongst women, there is a whole section, I think, over there which is totally untapped. And with that, actually, that just dives into today's podcast with what's the story with divorce. So let's get into asking you a simple question about women who are planning or thinking or even considering divorce. Is there something that they don't know, or what are their rights that they're not even aware of? Is there two, three things you can tell us about?
Yeah, with the legal system notwithstanding and the access to costs notwithstanding, just if somebody is miserable, what do they likely not know about their rights?
Well, if somebody is miserable, going to the courts is going to make them more miserable. It's an extremely long and delayed.
Punishment.
But of course, I mean, you have to. If you're going through a miserable marriage now, women expect much more, right? And of course, they'll have to have access to the courts unless they decide to just break free from that marital bond because they're so oppressed. We keep passing laws, so you've got the family courts now, which was a special jurisdiction only for family matters. Then you've had the Domestic Violence Act, which is supposed to be even more pro women legislation because you've now recognized live in relationships as well. So in domestic violence matters, even if you are a live in lover, you still have rights, not to be have any kind of domestic violence inflicted on you, which includes economic abuse, by the way. Yeah, it includes economic abuse. It doesn't have to be physical violence. So even economic abuse, deprivation of money, etc., etc., is domestic violence. It's the implementation in India. It's always the implementation, right? First of all, there's this chronic illness that we are a very litigious population, right? I'm not singling out women who are going through unhappy marriages or relationships. They have to do this. They have to do this, right? The response is always new litigation, etc. The problem is, as I said, implementation, and if you, it starts with the fact that you don't have enough judges per litigious population. The ratio of judges to litigating population is the lowest in the world. It is abysmal. So first of all, you have to have more judges. You have crimes committed 15, 20 serious crimes. At that time, the most talked about crimes. And this is getting progressively worse now, right? As the arrears start mounting, right? Crimes of 2020. I remember I was part of that whole 1992. I mean, all those people were my clients, Harshad Mehta and later on Ketan Parikh and all. You had special courts for them. You had courts where the trials took place in the High Court directly, which doesn't happen normally, right? The High Court got an original jurisdiction to do all these because it was such a big scam in those days, right? And there are still some cases from that 1992 scam. We're what, in 2025 now? So we're talking 47 years.
Still going on.
No, we're talking 33 years now. 33 years. There are still some remnants of that litigation left over. Crime, they say, you prosecute a crime, well, no matter how old it is, because crime never dies. But criminals do.
And then it is Tariq pe Tariq pe Tariq. Is that how it works?
Yeah, the Tariq is, there's a vested interest system. I mean, I keep trying to raise my meek voice all the time on,
What would be the first change you'd make if you were given that choice?
we're entering in a few controversial subjects. First thing is, of course, I would say that we need to appoint more judges. The appointment of judges needs to be more transparent. It's become a little bit of a opaque system now, right? And you need to have the whole process, right? Judges are very defensive about it. You have judges basically appointed by a collegium system, at least at the higher
Yeah.
levels, consisting of 3 or 5 of the top Supreme Court judges. And you never get to know why someone's rejected or why someone's appointed. And then you hear horrendous stories sometimes about favoritism, nepotism, all that. A lot of judges then haven't turned out to be good when they've been in office. So obviously the choices are not ideal that are made. So there's a lot of things to do in judicial reform. I mean, no system is perfect, right? Everything is going to have its own issues and its own drawbacks. But there's a lot of good reform that could be done in our legal system. And it's as yet, nobody's taken interest for all these years. It's really, and the system is still in disarray.
No, it's sad. I mean, I've been at the receiving end of a divorce, as a lot of my friends, etc. And I remember it just being painful. The whole process, like you said, is the punishment, and there was no trial. It was a mutually, what is it called? Mutually amicable or whatever. Can't even remember the terms now. But it was still painful. Like you have to go, and the judge gives you have to go through counseling, and you know what I mean.
Right.
And those courts are overcrowded. There are no facilities to even sit properly. Whether you're from a well-heeled family or from a chawl, it didn't matter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The infrastructure leaves much to be desired. So there is, the toilets are pathetic. And basically, women are just, waiting for their cases to be called out, and probably sometimes the whole day. And they're the ones who are in desperate need of money because in most cases, it's women who are looking for alimony and maintenance, being the homemakers. So, and of course, for them, men can be extremely insensitive. It's a fact. Men are more insensitive to children, to the concerns of children, to the needs of children. And women are therefore not only fighting for themselves, they're also fighting for their children's education and future education and marriage and so on and so forth. So if you're in a bad marriage for a woman, I think it can be quite tormenting.
Okay, so we have a full section on the financials just to understand it all. But let's just this is like a bit of a slightly speedier section of we throw some common beliefs at you and you tell us how far they're true or what sticks and what doesn't. Just a couple. Does divorce automatically mean that a woman gets alimony?
Yes, it means she's entitled to alimony. She's certainly entitled to alimony, unless she's extremely well off herself. But the husband then, in any case, even has to make provision for the children. Right? But most women who really were doing extremely well wouldn't even bother with the courts, right? Unless you want to teach your husband a lesson for being errant in some sense or the other. But that would be a revenge motive, and I would say, just get over it. My advice today would be, right, do not get into the business of using courts to teach your husband a lesson if he's done any wrong to you, right? Just move on because
Settle.
these
Yeah.
courts are not equipped to get you that kind of justice, though you may deserve it. It's just a waste of time. You'll get frustrated, and you'll say, in the end of it, you'll say, why did I go to court at all? And you'll settle.
Is that worldwide or is that right now in India only? I mean,
No, worldwide it's much better. I mean, the English family courts are pretty quick. They sort out issues very, very quickly.
And plus, it's a template, right? Like in the States or in England, like you're entitled to 50% of the assets. So there's some kind of a
system.
system.
Over here the problem is that it is in terms of awarding alimony or maintenance, it's very feudal in its nature, right? But a good law was laid down, right? It may not have been as far-reaching in terms of helping women as it is abroad. 50% of property down the middle and all that, assets included. The test is you are entitled in matrimony, in divorce, to the same lifestyle. So you are awarded money which gives you the same lifestyle as you had in marriage. In a cash economy, particularly like ours was, right?
Yeah.
There were no, you could never prove that you were getting that much money. Now things are much better. Much more money is being paid in check officially. That's one of the good things about the black economy, attack on the black economy. Everything is out in the open, and in the case of women, you knew what you get. The other problem is if you're married to a corporate husband, right? makes most of his expenses from the company's account. Right? That's another issue. That's another issue. So you could be Mrs. Tata, but you're not actually because he will say I only get this much salary and so on and so forth. But all your living expenses come on the company account. That's another issue. But fundamentally, if things were streamlined in terms of time, it would be far less arduous for women and be easier to get money today expeditiously. A lot of adjournments are taken. Sometimes judges don't come. What I find is that there's no passion for justice now. That's the problem.
So outside of going to the court, is there any? I mean, you have to go to the court to get a divorce, right?
Yeah, oh, I mean, you can do it quickly. I mean, you can do a mutual consent and you're out.
There's no
So,
timeline that you have to wait for or any of
Six
that.
months.
no,
From
no, it
going for
can go on. It can go on endlessly. I mean, there are some cases which are still going on 6, 7, 8 years. Unless you're going for a mutual consent divorce,
messy.
it's very time consuming.
The other question was: does custody always go to the mother? Is that a given?
For a child below the age of 6, right? The custody is with the mother. That's because that nurturing is required at an earlier stage. Later on, it can change, but generally speaking, the test is not so much age-wise, right? That will be a presumption that if the child is of a particular age, the mother is the natural guardian. Above that, it doesn't necessarily mean that the mother loses the custody. The test is always the paramount welfare of the child. The phrase is what is the court takes a moral decision or a legal come moral decision. What is in the paramount interest of the child in question?
Another quick question was: if you filed first, are you at an advantage? I mean, is there any difference with the aggressor? The
If you file first, say you file for cruelty, then you have to prove cruelty.
right.
Generally speaking, but you have no choice because your husband will just sit back, and unless you go to court,
Yeah.
there's no first mover advantage. In fact, as I said, there's a slight disadvantage because then you have to prove all these incidents of cruelty.
The other thing is saying, earlier it was pretty
And
black and
adultery,
white.
by the way, adultery, which is another ground for divorce, right, is the most difficult to prove. Very, very
Yeah.
difficult to prove. Then you got to keep a detective and show opportunity, hotel rooms, locked and so on. Walking in, camera, detective comes in the picture. So it's basically you're only doing it on the ground of cruelty. So they're bringing in now irretrievable breakdown of marriage. There's some talk that no fault marriage divorce can be granted, and that's about time it happens. You don't really have to decide the grounds for divorce, whether those are made out. Cruelty, adultery, bigamy, insanity. You don't prove all that, right? Then
You know,
you're just really looking at the money aspect. It becomes a straight, you know,
Right.
you want to get rid of your wife, pay a price for it.
like earlier, because divorce was such a big thing in society, it was taboo, all of that. And even the grounds, even for people to get to that point of seeking a divorce, had to have something major. Either your husband was hitting you, or he was cheating on you, or she was cheating on him, or there was something going on. Now that threshold is much lower, possibly accompanied by the fact that women are also financially more independent and therefore not willing to put up with a lot of even everyday issues or conflicts or just
Well, to
incompatibility.
some extent, what you say is true, Mandira, but there was always a ground of mental cruelty, right?
Right.
So mental cruelty meant emotional abuse as well, right? If you verbally abused somebody, you emotionally abused her, right? And there were many, many incidents which would fall under these categories, right? But it was difficult to prove. Even then, it was difficult. It was your word against his. Then you'd get the servants involved because most of these incidents of verbal cruelty, etc., happen. So
Yeah.
the domestic servants had a field day. They were called to court and all that.
Obviously.
And then of course then the money plays its part, and then the husband pays the domestic servant off. There's been so many cases like that. So
You've done a few celebrity divorces, so to speak. We
most
won't
cases
go
are settled now. Most cases are settled.
all settled, all done. No, but when you were in those, when all that was going on, so what is the focus on in the court? Is it about dividing assets, dividing kids, dividing headlines? How much of it is sensationalism? How does those generally play out in real life?
A new law came in, and women started invoking that, right? And
Which
that
was
brought a lot of misuse, right? So I
which
guess
one?
men were
What was
now pay
which,
for all the
sorry.
historical injustice to their wives, right? Men were now getting paid back, right? In the sense that these dowry cases came in, and in those, and then you had cruelty to a woman, 498 capital A of the Indian Penal Code, the new section, that if you are cruel to a woman, it's a criminal offense. So then the police stepped in. So you can go and lodge an FIR that I've been subjected to cruelty, physical cruelty, or so that
Dowry.
happened. And then dowry cases happened. So women got this handle to use the criminal law to settle matters. Now that was a really stupid development actually, because if the civil law, right, and these are offenses, of course, dowry burning cases and all are on a different level. Then you need to, including the in-laws, if they're being cruel to the
Specify
and
And
yeah.
dowry.
So
Yes.
so my sister used to, she used to run a magazine, and she did some pretty seminal work in this, in bride burning cases and dowry death cases. She used to run a magazine called Kali's Yug.
Wow.
It was quite a buzzed in those days when it first came out, right?
Of
So
course.
she took up a lot of these causes. She did pro bono. She had a unit of her own, a little sort of a cell which used to do women's cases. So I never did a rape case. I barely done a rape case in my entire career, right? Because I promised her that I would never do a rape case. Right?
right.
You would
So
never defend
occasionally
her.
I would do a case, but I thought, some woman was trying to blackmail a man. I would do the bail part of it. I'd get him out on bail, but I've never done a rape trial. And I think that was part of because my sister was such a feminist that I was so in awe of her as well at one time. I mean, so the feminine side of me came from my sister. And I didn't do those kinds of cases as a balk.
No, like you were saying, for these celebrity type cases or whatever high profile or where it's assets in headlines, etc. You were speaking of these new laws in that context, basically. Was it easier, or was it then obviously was it misused ever, to twist things?
So this happened a lot. I mean, when the law first came out for about 20 years, right? Men were at the receiving end, and their mothers and their fathers. I mean, I have a relative, also a relative of yours, Mandira, right?
Ooh.
Who
Ooh,
was
ooh.
given no, who was given a lot of stick. His his his, his mother and father were dragged to court. He was married to a journalist, so you can imagine.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So.
Toba,
Yeah,
Tony.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
need
So
to know. We need
that
to know.
I'll tell you offline.
that poor fellow, the woman had broken up her first marriage, got a decent alimony from somebody who was a struggling actor, right? And I warned him. I said, "Listen, you made me do that divorce, right?" And that poor fellow came to my office and said that, I
The first
I
husband, right?
I don't know why I am paying for all this because I'm a struggling actor, right? And they had a child. They had a child, right? And they finally settled the matter out of court, right? Having got this alimony, our
Then
relative,
Act Two comes into play.
Act 2 came in, and and I warned him. I said, "Listen, you're once bitten, twice shy, right? Don't do this, right?" He insisted on marrying her about 1 week after I gave him that advice. Right? I said we live to regret it. But I think his cases, his father, mother were both
Poor
dragged in.
thing. She had her
Yeah.
eyes on his
Yeah.
very large apartment.
Yeah.
Also, once he was found in the breach candy, what was it? That accidents and emergencies with bites all over his body. She'd bitten him. I mean,
Oh
this is
my.
like this is like
Yeah, yeah. It's but this whole thing. He got his freedom right after I think 12 years of litigating in courts, including his parents being dragged to a police station for questioning, and
Drama.
and and being in a domestic violence case.
and actually not
So
deserving it at all. But
yeah,
this is
yeah.
a prime example
So
of where
that was terribly misused. So the pendulum swung the other way. What was originally gave women a criminal tool to settle their disputes, right? Because oh God, my parents are going to jail and all that. Then the parents first who had nothing to do with it, who were extremely liberal parents and stayed clear post marriage, right? But willy nilly, some allegation would be made. Lawyers would advise them, the best way to settle this matter is file a criminal case. So then the law came into misuse, and the Supreme Court now, even the Supreme Court now has been giving relief, in matters like that. Now every case was becoming a dowry case or a cruelty case by the entire family.
That's what we were going to actually ask you, that, collateral damage at this point, when
Yeah.
it goes the other side. I mean, it's not only just that we're talking from a woman's perspective, but I'm thinking when this whole thing changed to a criminal law, a lot of men got the raw end of the stick,
Yeah,
literally,
he
through
got the
that.
wrong end of it. Yeah. A lot of men went to jail when they should not have gone to jail because bail was denied to them.
Misused.
But I guess when everything goes so far left, then you try and bring it in the middle, and then there is.
But just looking back at it in hindsight, right? This was really unnecessary. If the courts had performed their role, getting speedy justice for women through the family courts, right? There would have been no that all this would not have been necessary for women to stoop to all this. You can't blame women, but you can
Yeah.
blame them then that having tasted blood, like all women, will go too far then. So
Humans, all humans.
yeah. then they then they'll
All humans,
they'll
not just
they'll relish the blood.
yummy. Okay, let's break down the finances a bit for 2 minutes. Not just alimony, etc., but let's just play out a couple of things. For example, like in the said case of our relative and his now ex-wife or whatever. One is when a couple decides to get a divorce, no matter who files, who pays the bills? Like, does the husband take care of the bills for both sides?
Yeah, that he has to deposit some money. There's a provision that he has to deposit money. Money which is paid is not really like all costs in India, right? Costs are a sort of a minuscule amount of what litigation actually costs in this
Of
country.
course.
So it doesn't happen that way. Actually, women are paying much more out of their own pocket than the court. So you've got to be realistic, and then also
Yeah.
when most of the cases which come to court, right, and which are really bitterly fought,
Hmm.
are cases where from high society, right? We're
Yeah.
bitterly fought because the wives have some enough money to litigate and try and get a better settlement, and the husband has more money, of course. So, except in rare instances. So, what happens then is that the battle goes on for quite some time because both parties have money, right? And ultimately, the wife also gets voluntarily from the husband a fair amount of settlement for her legal costs. But if you leave it to the courts, you'll get a minuscule amount.
Even in real life, forget leaving it to the courts, forget the theory of it. But like, for example, if a couple has decided to get divorced or whatever, the things have come to such a head that they can't go ahead with that marriage anymore. And the man, and it's getting bitter. And the man has the financial heft to engage several top names. Okay, he's come to you. He's got 10 of the country's top lawyers or whatever, leaving not too many options with his wife, or say 20. When you have the money, you can engage people. Then what is the option in front of the woman? What does she do?
No, I mean she's got to hope that the judges don't get swayed by top lawyers, right? And many judges, most judges actually don't, right? Most judges, do not look at the personality of the lawyer who's arguing before them, right? So but ultimately judges do go by facts and the law, by and large. It's just that they're so overburdened with cases, right? So overburdened with cases that it becomes very difficult to give them speedy justice. You'll get justice if you have the patience ultimately, but that takes a very long time. And by that time, you're really drained. Women are drained. You'll hear stories of women every day. Oh my God, I've heard women tell another woman, "Don't even go down that road." A woman who's had the experience of a traumatic time with all its delays, right? Telling another woman, just stay away because don't even go down that path. So, but these things have to, they have to change. There's got to be some reform. It's not that difficult. If you have enough judges and you have judges with compassion for speedy justice, this can happen. By the way, many times I don't want to blame only judge. Many times lawyers, the meter ticks per hearing, so they're quite happy to keep
Of course.
adjourning the matter. Yeah.
And on that note, what's the story with prenups? I mean, they've become.
Would that help? Yeah.
Yeah.
Would prenups help speed up the whole thing in life? When you have a predetermined formula, like we put so
They're
much
not
of it.
not recognized yet in India, but yeah, of course. I mean, they would certainly help. Prenups would.
But
You
they're not
can't.
recognized in India right now? They're not recognized? Oh, wow.
That's interesting to know that.
Yeah, didn't know that.
Like, I think in the Western world, prenups are practically a part of the marriage proposal. Which is
The prenups are practically binding there, right? But right now, over here, marriage is a sacred institution, and it's not a contractual arrangement, right?
interesting.
Yeah. You should see this movie called The Materialists. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it. We'll see it now. Let's
See it.
Yeah, right off.
right after this.
Yeah. That actually tells you how decadent the West has become about marriage. For them, it's a pure commercial arrangement, right?
Wow.
It's about a woman who works for a
Huh.
matchmaking agency. The very watchable Dakota Johnson. So
Huh.
you should see
Huh.
it.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, we watch it. 100% we watch it.
yeah.
So tell us, because the way the system is, have you seen a lot of couples reconcile mid-divorce? They've said,
Yeah, have people just
"Choro,
said,
like just forget it. Now it's too
huh.
much paperwork. Let's just go back and
Yeah,
live
lots of.
life."
I've seen both. I've seen couples say that enough is enough, right? Give me what you want, and I'll take it, and I'll move on, right?
Right.
Jaan chodo.
I have also seen about 5 years ago in a very high profile business family, right? A husband being called to a police station. I won't tell you which state because you might guess the name then, right? Being called to a police station, right? And a matter being settled at the police station with a 200 crore demand draft. I was advising in that this matter was settled in a police station and a 200 crore draft was given to the wife by way
Because
of
mine
alimony.
is running
My
right
mind is
now.
going tick, tick, tick. No,
Yeah.
no, I'll get the name.
No, no. Confidentiality is the lawyer's trademark.
Oh,
I
yes,
mean,
yes, yes, very much so.
absent that, and you're
No, no,
About love now.
you're
With
you're a you're a gossip columnist.
no. What about you, Tony? I mean, you've seen discord at close quarters. You've had to see a lot of acrimony at very close quarters. You've fought for a lot of people. You've seen lot more than the ordinary person does in their day-to-day life. Do you still believe in everlasting love and happy endings
fairy tale.
and a happily ever after?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think marriages, all marriages have their ups and downs. There's no such thing as a completely trouble-free marriage. All marriages. That's God's test for
That's
for
your
for both
karma.
sides. Both sides. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Live with it for God's sake. Live together. Make it work, right? And especially when you have children. Yeah, I think it's but equally, I think it's necessary now to get away from that idea about marriage being a sacred institution and all, right? Because you've got to live with evolving times as well.
Yeah,
So
and also practically, in the sense that today you're a father of a daughter and you're a father of two boys. Tomorrow when Serena gets married and hopefully to somebody that she loves and he loves and values and respects her and all of that. But you as the father, I'm guessing, will say to her, you are not to take shit for even a second. If you're not
yeah,
happy, end it,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely, absolutely,
And your
absolutely.
so
You see,
give us
that can't be said for the last majority of fathers, right? Because
that's the sad part.
then who's going to provide? So if you have a father who can leave you his riches and all that, that's fine. But what happens when you don't have that situation? That's the tragedy. That's why a lot of, but actually, even I have an ongoing case right now of a friend's daughter, right, who's going through a huge divorce battle. But his first thing was that you make your marriage work. So her complaint to me is that, it was a loveless marriage, right? And I made all the mistakes I made because there was cruelty and all that involved. And she kind of says, but my father said, he told me not to exit the marriage because. So I think if the father is, all girls' first hero is their father, right? It continues to be for
Always.
the rest of their life, right? So I think if the father senses trouble, right? Maybe you can give it one more chance. But if the threat, if the complaint from the daughter is persistent, right? Then I think it's time for him to say that this is not going to change. Once can be condoned, but thereafter, so. And especially if there are children involved, you want to save the marriage. No, you want to save it as
Of
much as
course.
you can.
Yeah.
That any father's the outlook would be that if there are children, for God's sake. But if it's a really cruel situation, insufferable.
No, this has changed now, but I mean, it's been in my family too, where we try to make a cousin make it work, make it work. I mean, why? Why do we do this? The whole society and outlook is changing, and hopefully, what we as women actually need is, once a decision is made, something anyway you take so much time to make, you just need that support right at the back
Yeah,
of
it's not
the
an
door.
easy decision.
It's
It's
not
not
an
that
easy
you can't be
decision.
flippant about.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not ending a relationship, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, no,
it's
no. If you're single, you can make do on your own,
mm.
right?
Yeah,
When you are
yeah.
single, then it's not bad. But when you have children involved, and Children need both parents. They really do need both parents. Rock the boat and be a little selfless about your own needs and
Or what the world will say. I think it's becoming less and less about that, but a lot of it has to do with that. Anyway, just before we end, a couple of more questions. I mean, if someone's listening right now, not with a coffee, but in our hand, but a million questions unanswered, what is that one thing you would tell them to do? Like, what's your advice to someone considering a divorce right now?
it would depend on whether they have children or not, right? If they were single, I would take a different approach, right? If they were finding the marriage uh, has reached that stage of what in foreign jurisdictions is called irretrievable breakdown of marriage, right? That they've had enough, in other words, and they don't have children, I would say walk out, right? End the marriage peaceably, right? Of course, there's always that it's easy to leave a marriage, but where's the money, honey, right? So you have to then work to fight that part of it. So I would say with children, think very hard, right? If it's a humiliating marriage, if it's a marriage which is makes it insufferable, then take your children too and walk out.
Just walk out.
Yeah. If it's insufferable, of course. I mean, you can't live in misery.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're living with a habitual wife beater, then what would
No,
you
no
do?
question. And then what is the example you're setting in front of your kids? And at some point, it's maybe better for the kids to see two happy parents live separately than to live in a miserable
Children
home.
also don't like to see a ravaged home, and constant screaming and bickering and abusing.
Because those are
Then
scars that are carried well into their adulthood.
Absolutely.
You know.
you see, there's no one glove fits all. There's no
Yeah.
one glove
Yeah.
fits all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to see the facts of each situation, and then that's why I mean, marriage is such a each marriage is so different. Right?
Yeah.
Some marriages are beyond salvation, and some you can still save. So you just got to see. That's why this new trend of mediation in marriages, right? The judge sends you to mediation, right, and gets a closer, more personal look at fault. Can it be saved? Everything. So all judges are now sending in for compulsory mediation, right? Some of the mediators are very good. Some are, just doing it for the
Sarkari.
job. So if you get a good mediator, that's the solution, really.
So
And,
that's
and go
definitely.
to and always go to a marriage counselor before also, to sort out your issues.
Yeah,
But
which is
fighting in courts is a drag.
yeah, so there's mediation, there's counseling, there's
Yeah.
lots of different
There are lots of
courses this
yeah.
journey can explore. What's the one thing you love about yourself?
That I wear so many different hats, that there's so much variety that I've tasted public life, been there, that I've enjoyed every facet of my life, ups and downs. The thing I love about myself is I produce children whom I adore, right? And all of them have made me proud. All three of them have already started making me proud, starting with my daughter. And the boys are doing well now at university already, early start, but they're doing well. I love that I have really good friends. I have glamorous. So you are never ever sad. You have lots of good friends. That makes life so much worth living and so much easier to live. Old Shakespearean saying, the eye sees itself only by reflection. When you get that feedback from your friends and your social circle, what more can you ask for?
Absolutely. It's the people you surround yourself with. And that's amazing that you have this. One quick other question was, what's next on your list to achieve? What are the plans?
Well, I'd like to really do some reform, and it's my legacy. It's my legacy. And it's going a little seriously downhill, the profession. So I've been vocalizing it a lot, right? I've already been vocalizing it on public platforms, places where I can speak, social media, electronic media. So yeah, I mean, I really like to be part of something. Being in Parliament was great because you did a lot of studying for different bills. You did a little bit of research. You got to know subjects you wouldn't have known normally. So it was great. It was a learning experience. It taught you the nuances of a lawmaker as opposed to a law arguer. As opposed to somebody who advocates given law. But then being a lawmaker is also an extremely, and the best thing is being a law reformer. The future really in the legal profession is going to be artificial intelligence. It really is. It's going to be a game changer.
Of course.
Yeah.
So,
We haven't even
so
touched
I'm working with somebody on it. I'm a novice. But this guy whom I'm working with, and I'm hoping to meet him again tomorrow, has already set up a platform in a certain area of law. So I'm trying to get his help to create an artificial intelligence model which eliminates corruption and delay. It's going to be basically on in criminal law.
Yeah, and that's definitely the need of the hour. And great that you got on, to this, because artificial intelligence is genuinely so helpful in everything that we do.
Yeah.
Next,
It'll give you real time information, and that's the most important. When you
yeah.
get real time information.
Okay, next question. What's been the most challenging case for you so far?
Between 1992 and 2001, right? I did spate of cases it was the biggest scam of the century. It was not only the biggest scam, it was liberalized India's biggest scam, the Harshad
Right.
Mehta scam.
Yeah.
I have to say that in those 9 years, I did criminal trials in both civil matters and about banks and bureaucrats and brokers. It was a real insight into the our financial system, our banking system, and our stock markets. So I have to say that those are the most challenging cases. At the end of it all, that also sort of coincided with a huge political scam where Harshad Mehta went to deliver 1 crore of rupees in a suitcase to the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, right? Which everybody thought was not possible, putting 1 crore rupees. And we
Yeah.
carried a suitcase at a press conference in the Taj and proved it was possible. That was a very challenging time because I thought that the brokers in that case got the short end of the stick, and I was dealing with it. It was more a systemic scam at that time. India had just found its feet with stock markets and all that, liberalization. So that was a new era, and it opened up a new dimension. Change is coming in India now at such a fast pace. It's a very exciting time. There's cybercrime. There is artificial intelligence. Media law is a big subject. Intellectual property. These are hugely challenging things that are law disciplines of the future. So it's ever expanding and always novel. So for a lawyer, there's never a dearth of challenges. There's never a dearth of new challenges, applying your mind to new things. Every case has different dimensions, and every era in your profession. I'm now 45 years into the profession, right? I still get cases which involve a completely new brand of law, and it is so exciting to start learning all over again.
Forever learning
It-
is forever
yeah,
stay. Yeah.
for me, learning is the best experience. Then you stop being a learner and you're deadwood.
One piece of advice for your children, your two sons and a daughter, as they navigate adulthood. What is it that you would, tell them?
Develop your intellect. I mean, the whole purpose of life. I mean, if you're a philosophy student, that there's a everyday purpose, and then there's a philosophical purpose, right? The end. You're here to make the best. You're here for a reason, right? I really believe that you're here for a reason, right? Life itself is a gift. Use it, of course, to have fun, without being a hedonist, right? Of course, to have a lot of fun and enjoy, suck out the best out of life, right? But also do something to improve the lot of mankind for the future, your children. So, in a sense, you have to be a thinker and a reformer, right? So, I would tell my children, take your education very seriously. Whatever you like, make it a passion and build upon it. Don't just be a good student or a great student. Also be an inquisitive student and try and see the path you've taken, how it can lead to change for the better. That's one. Second, I think integrity. And I put integrity before intellect, right? Although I brought it second. I think in everything you do, you have to have utmost integrity.
Yeah.
Right? It starts at home, it ends with your
Yeah.
people who come in your life, etc., etc. Right?
Yeah.
And if you if integrity is difficult in a given situation, just don't get caught.
Just do what?
Just don't get caught. There's Tony. He's back.
He's back. I think this is getting too serious. This is not the Tony you told me about, Mandira. But okay.
Integrity. I think
Yeah,
there's
I
nothing
think-
more important than integrity.
But how do you unwind?
I like my occasional tipple, right? I like my drink. I'm an extrovert. I love meeting people, new people, and I unwind. And of course, I like to read a lot outside law. I like to read a lot. I used to play bridge a lot, but I don't have the time anymore.
Oh, you don't have the time right now to play bridge.
No, I don't have the time because I like to do my, prolong my life routine, which is my exercise routine.
Right.
Stay as young and fit as you can as you grow older.
Yeah, yeah. No, the minute you said bridge, I got excited because we're avid card players.
We play cards
We
practically
play
every day.
cards, we play poker, we play anything to do with
No,
cards.
no, but now I'm told all that is gone by the time. I'm told the new
Mahjong.
trend is mahjong. Yeah, and
Yes, that's next on the
everybody
list.
playing mahjong.
Oh my God, is obsessed.
Really?
Obsessed. Mahjong
Yeah.
parties, mahjong cakes, mahjong.
Oh my God,
it's-
they've
glam-
glamorized it.
They've
also.
Indianized it. Oh,
And
sorry.
Yeah,
Guys.
mahjong has become really very sort of, it's the in game now over here.
Just a quote, just a parting shot. Give us a parting shot / a closing argument vis-a-vis a quote to live by.
I know how most of my friends would say I did it my way, but that's not my line. I mean, I'm not going to go for a hand-me-down quote, which is used frequently. But I would say that if people were to say, professionally or otherwise, right, spending time with Mahesh was never a dull moment. I would thrilled. If people said any interaction you had with this guy was always captivating, or always never dull. I would find that a outstanding compliment. Really.
That's beautiful. It really is. And I can testify for one that there never is a dull moment with you, Tony. So if that counts for anything, my vote is there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, that's what life is all about.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was just fantastic. I've met you for the first time and I'm a fan. I can't wait to spend some time.
I bet you say that to everybody.
No, she
No, I
doesn't.
don't.
Very discerning. Very discerning.
Anyway.
I'm discerning. So
I that's a huge compliment, and I will sleep so much the better tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
all right.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much for joining us, for being such an
No,
integral part of this podcast.
It's been a pleasure, real pleasure. Thank you. It was great fun, really great fun. I wish you well with your podcast. More power
Thank
to
you.
you. More power to your
Thank-
elbow. More power to your flair, your fluency, your questions. All very interesting and actually very relevant. So
Thank you.
you, from my point of view, you were really, really worthy podcasters.
Thank
you.
you. So happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do join us again for another edition of What's the Story With?
Like, share, subscribe. That's what we're supposed to say at the end of every podcast.